Hi friends, it's Monique, your slightly awkward journaling buddy. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if it's your first time here, welcome. So today we'll be doing part 2 of my flip-flop shabby chic junk journal that's been made out of old brown envelopes. I'll be finishing up the front cover because I need to make some adjustments to it because I do not like seeing the lines on the bottom of the image. I've got something in mind to fix that, and then I need to fix the closure and create a cover for the back front cover. And we'll see how far we get today, and then we can start making ephemera and embellish the inside of the journal. So if that sounds like something that you want to join me on, grab your supplies and craft with me. So in my last video, we did the front cover. We made the entire journal. So I used 6 brown envelopes, just like this one, that I attached to each other in different ways to make the pockets be on different sides. So if you flip through the journal, you will see there's a pocket here, and then there's a nice big signature. I think I've only got 4. Yeah, I've only got 4 pages per signature, and then there's no pocket here, and then you flip it, there's a pocket here again, and then another signature, and no pocket here, and then a pocket here, and then the last signature here, and then the last pocket. I'm going to cut this off. I was thinking about trying to incorporate it in the closure, but that doesn't make sense after thinking about it a little bit, but we'll get to that. Then you've got the back cover / front cover, and then if you flip it, there's no pocket here, but then there's a pocket here again with your signature here. No pocket, signature, and pocket again, and then you're back at the front cover. So this is like an infinity style flip-flop journal. So it opens all the way. I don't know if it's showing up on camera nicely, but there is 5 signatures in here and 6 envelopes in total used. So this is actually a very nice thing. So everywhere you work on the journal, you can lay it completely flat, and if you turn it around, there's some more signatures, and it lies completely flat. So this is a really cool thing. And it's going to get quite chunky if I have my way. So the way it looks now, it's chunky, but not nearly as chunky as it can be. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I'm going to be working on the cover today, fixing up some issues, and then working on the back cover and the closure. And then we'll see where that takes us. So when I stuck this down, it was quite wet still, and then obviously the glue that you use also makes paper a little bit wet. So I don't know if you can see it, if it's showing up on camera nicely, but there's a slight ruffle to it that follows the cardstock below, and I don't like the look of that. So I've actually reprinted one, and I've distressed the edges so long, and then just did some tea dyeing. So this is also just drying up. So I'm going to be sticking this to a piece of cardstock, just a piece of scrappy cardstock, and then I'm going to stick this over this one, so it's going to not pick up the texture from the below cardboard. And then I'm also going to do it for the one that I'm going to be using on the back, because I'm also going to be pasting that onto some of this cardstock. So I'm going to start working on the front cover, and you can just follow along. See, now that looks a lot better. It doesn't look like it's merging with the piece of cardstock below, and it is looking like it's standing out a bit more, which I found to look really nice. I decided to use this type of burlap twine, and just to wrap it around like 3 times maybe. just like that, and then I'm going to double it up. I'm going to use that as the length, and then I'm just going to give a little bit of extra length just to be sure, because I'm going to be tying it down, just to be sure that it sticks down nicely. And this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to just loop it through this hole like so, and just do a knot. Not really a knot, it's just like hooking it down, I guess. Just like that, so it's easily removable. So then I can either like go to the back, which might be the easiest thing to do. I hide the lady's face like I did in the first closure I did. I think it suits the cover a bit better, making the focal point the lace and the lady instead of this wool thing that I wanted to use. It was so chunky. Okay, so closure done, and let's start on the back cover. Okay, so I've got all the elements together, and I'm gonna just start prepping. Where's that? I'm just gonna prep this image. That looks great. So I'm just going to get some thread that I'm going to thread through the buttons to make them look like they were sewn on, but I'm going to use some of the burlap twine that I used when I frayed it. Let's see how that looks. So I'm just using some paper glue to also stick down all the texture bits. If you want to see the video where I made the journal from the envelopes, just check out the description box below. I've got it linked there. So if you've got a formula that you work with, like not having to sit and think about stuff for too long, then it also goes much faster to create anything actually. So if you like making bulk ephemera, then if you have one figured out, then the rest comes quite easily. So in this case, I just decided, like I said, to go with the theme that I did in front and just continue it here at the back, maybe make a little bit of adjustments. Not everything is 100% the same. So on the front I used the flowers and this pin, but on the back I don't think I'm going to be using a pin, but I am going to be using these buttons. Nice big dollop of glue, just stick it down. Just arrange it like that. And then I used my typewriter in the previous video, in part 1, where I just typed out 2 phrases, and I said that I want to use this journal as a gratitude journal. So I used the word gratitude on the front cover, gratitude in my typewriter, and then I'm going to be using just why are we grateful, because God showed us grace, and grace upon grace is such a beautiful sentiment. So I'm just going to use this at the back. I'm just going to flip this around so that it is weighted on the side, that it can dry a bit. And here I'm just going to do some coffee staining, because the glue that I used made a little bit of marks. So I just want to try and hide that a little bit. So I'm not going to douse it in water. I'm just literally going to just paint with a little bit of a coffee mixture here. So I just used some normal instant coffee, and I just boiled some water and got that going. And obviously tea dyeing doesn't normally get done the way that I'm doing it now, but this is a really good way to bring some interest to detailed areas without soaking the entire piece. So I'm just going to age it a bit and give it a little bit of a stain, just so that it looks intentional. And if you do tea dyeing, it's a good idea to use a nice and large bowl or oven pan or something to that effect, and submerge and soak your items. You can tea dye or coffee dye any type of fabric or paper, and you can see how that comes out. I do like it. I usually add a little bit of food coloring to my tea or coffee mixture, and then that also just gives it an additional pop of color. So I like to add especially pink or red food coloring to the water, and then it makes it a different hue. But you can do blue. I haven't tried green and yellow yet, but I do think that it will work fine. So I'm going to leave this to dry properly, and then I'll tackle the other side as well with some tea dyeing, and maybe put some beads on the end of this. So I have to hope that I can actually get the beads through. So I'm just going to glue the bottoms of the twine a little bit. When you have like a thick thread and you need to get some beads on it, this really does help. Otherwise you can use a beading needle. I do not have one. Just make a knot at the end to keep the beads from going anywhere. I should have left myself a little bit more space there, but I didn't do that. I'm just distressing the lace a bit so that it looks a bit more grungy and old, and maybe a little bit tethered and weathered. Okay, so I'm thinking that I'm just gonna think about decorating the inside cover a bit, because there's quite a bit of cover to work with. So it's going to be covering of the pockets, or embellishing the pockets, and covering it's a bit loose here. It should be fine, I hope. Might have to rebind this one. So if you find that you do have some errors when making your journal. Just keep in mind that most things can be fixed afterwards, so it's not too big of a struggle if you need to fix them. And what I think is I'm going to wrap a lot of the decorations over this so that I can reinforce the spine a bit, seeing as it is only envelopes, and I've already noticed there's a tear. I don't know if there's more tearing on the other ones, so I'll focus on strengthening those as well. And then I decided to use the cardstock that I used on the cover, but I also thought to incorporate something that matches it closely on the other covers on the inside. And then I'm thinking about using this pattern paper to do like decoupage on the inside as well. And I might be using doilies also to wrap, and then I will incorporate the ephemera. So let's get started. I believe I will be starting from the front cover, so I'm going to be covering the majority of this pocket, and I think I am going to either cut this off and make the pocket a little bit bigger, or give it a notch to make it easier to fit things in here. Maybe the front pocket should be a little bit easier to get stuff into, seeing that it's already a very chunky envelope. So the next one is one of those that I want to reinforce. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be using a doily to cover that part, and maybe use some cardstock underneath the panels as well. So I'm just going to measure up maybe one panel like this and another one of this cardstock here, and I'm going to glue this pocket shut now, and I'll make a notch. Okay, hold on, let me first do this. I just measured the panels that I'm going to be putting inside with a lot of space, just so you can still see that it is actually a envelope, which is quite cool. And then I'm obviously going to put this over here, but I still need to figure out how I'm going to just cover that. So I was thinking maybe using a washi tape. Just looking at what I've got close to me, this might be good. Then I'll just run a strip along there as well. So I'll quickly do that as well, and ink the edges of the panels and glue this down. If you don't have washi tape, you can always use masking tape, which also works very good on paper, but I'm not looking for something that's not permanent, so I'm going to be sticking this down with some glue. So I'm just going to spread a little bit of glue all over here. Stick this down. I don't want to stick the panels, I don't want to stick the washi tape over the panels, so I'm just going to stick it down like so. And then when it's dry, I'll just give it a fold, just make sure that it sticks down. And now I'm going to place the panels here, like so. And while I'm here, I'll just glue down these bits of the pocket to make sure that it's a little bit better enforced and not wobbly. I'm just roughly aligning it with the panel next to it so that it doesn't look off if you have the journal open like this. So it is aligned for the most part, it seems. Yeah. I'm just going to crunch this up a bit for some additional texture. And maybe it rips a bit, which is also fine because we're going for a grungy feel, and I want the side that took the tea dyeing better to be on top. So this is this side then, so I'll be sticking it down like this. So it's just some additional texture. I think it just would make it nice with like layering things up, so you can always do a collage, which is something that I'm leaning towards as well. I'm just gonna bend this now. Just to keep it from sticking to all the other pages, I'm just going to pop a piece of scrap paper in here, so, and then we can move on to the next one. So this is the one that's already gotten a tear in it, and I'll be also reinforcing it with washi tape and be putting 2 panels there. But I think the middle that's more or less the middle. I'm going to change it up and use this to reinforce it, and maybe some vintage book page, just to make sure that I've got enough of that scrapbooking cardstock to make sure that it will last the entire project. So let's just, I can always bring it in afterwards just to, as a pop of color and maybe like in a collage. And I think this will help, especially if you do the glue mixture that I'm going to show you. It's going to make it all nice and sturdy. So I found this little book in my stash that I started gutting now. So I'm going to be using these as the panels here. I just want to chop off the ends that aren't looking too neat. Okay, so I'm going to glue these down. I don't always like straight edges on everything, so I'm just going to tear this to make it look a little bit grungy, and then I'm going to go from one corner to the other, so I don't want to go too far over all this book page, so I'm going to just randomly tear. I just need to add some beads. Let me do that quickly. So I have to hope that I can actually get the beads through, so I'm just going to glue the bottoms of the twine a little bit. When you have like a thick thread and you need to get some beads on it, this really does help. Otherwise you can use a beading needle. I do not have one. Just make a knot at the end to keep the beads from going anywhere. I should have left myself a little bit more space there, but I didn't do that. I'm just distressing the lace a bit so that it looks a bit more grungy and old and maybe a little bit tethered and withered. So while this is drying, I'm just going to leave a piece of scrap paper on it so that I can go on this side. I won't be putting too much pressure here, so it should be fine. And I was thinking I'm going to take off this one as well, so because we're heading to the back / front cover, and also this here, because I want it to be more or less uniform, so I'm just going to stick with that, and then I'm just going to put the piece of cardstock here that matches what I did in the front. So one of this checkered pattern papers I'll be using on the front. And I didn't want that to happen, but now it's happened, so it doesn't look too bad. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so the one side of the journal has been covered on the inside, every single one of them, and I'm just going to cut off this large flap. I'm just trying to decide if I need to use these on the inside. Some more of those book pages, and I'm leaning towards the book pages, but I'll switch it up and use the doily to cover the center again, and some washi tape, and then I can always use these as accents on the decorations. Okay, so it's just the final two small areas to cover. This one and this one. So I am going to just cut a piece that I've measured here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you feel inspired and that you are along with me on this journey. And even if you're just watching me do it, or if you're crafting along or making something similar, that's exciting. Please share your projects with me via email or via the socials. I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram. And yeah, if you like my project so far, if you've got any questions or any suggestions, or just want to make small talk about either the rejection that you face in life, or the disappointment that you face in life, or a testimony of how God really came through for you and how gratefulness is a part of your life, then I'd love to hear from you. So like, comment, and subscribe. And then I'll remember that it doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.